The morning sun rose over Eden Prime like it had for the past 12 years since humans first settled there. The sky was a soft purple, and the fields stretched as far as anyone could see. Wheat and corn grew in neat rows, swaying in the gentle wind. Children laughed as they ran to school, their backpacks bouncing on their shoulders. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the orbital defense station, looking down at the planet below. He sipped his coffee and smiled. This was his home now. Down there, his wife taught at the elementary school. His son was probably getting ready for soccer practice. Life was good here, far from Earth's crowded cities and endless noise. Dr. Lisa Bennett was already at work in the medical center. She checked on old Mrs. Patterson, who had a bad cough. Then she reviewed vaccination schedules for the newest babies born on the colony. Her own 2 children would come by after school like they always did. Her daughter wanted to be a doctor too. Her son just wanted to play with the medical equipment and make everyone laugh. In the government building, Senator Paul Green read the morning reports. Earth had sent another message. The Galactic Dominion was making threats again. They wanted humanity to give up all colonies and accept their rule. Green had been a diplomat for 20 years. He knew how to handle bullies. You stay calm, you negotiate, you find common ground. That was how civilized people solved problems. Commander Helen Brooks sat in the intelligence office, staring at her screens. Something felt wrong. The Dominion had been quiet for 3 weeks. Too quiet. Their ships had pulled back from the border sectors. When predators went quiet, it usually meant they were preparing to strike. She sent another warning to Earth Command, but no one seemed worried. Everyone thought the Dominion was just posturing. The colony had 15,000 people. Farmers, teachers, engineers, doctors, shopkeepers, and families. They had built something beautiful here. Clean streets, parks with playgrounds, a library, 3 schools, and a hospital. On weekends, people gathered for concerts and festivals. They felt safe. At noon, the alarms went off. Captain Morrison dropped his coffee. His screens lit up with red warnings. Ships were coming out of slip space, big ships. Dozens of them. He counted 40 warships, all bearing the symbol of the Galactic Dominion. His hands shook as he activated the emergency broadcast. All stations, battle alert. Unknown hostile fleet entering orbit. This is not a drill. Down on the planet, people looked up at the sky. Parents grabbed their children. Teachers hurried students into hallways. Dr. Bennett ran to the emergency room, calling for all staff to report immediately. Senator Green tried to open a communication channel with the incoming fleet. Morrison tried too. He broadcast on every frequency. This is Captain Jake Morrison of Eden Prime Orbital Station. We are a civilian colony. We have no military installations. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. Silence. The Dominion ships moved into position above the planet. They were massive. Each one 10 times larger than Morrison's small defense station. He had 4 patrol ships and some orbital defense guns. Against this fleet, he had nothing. Please, Morrison broadcast again. We have children here. Families. We are not a threat to you. Please respond. One of the Dominion ships finally answered. The alien admiral appeared on screen, his face covered in scales, his eyes cold and empty. Humanity was warned. You were told to surrender. You refused. Now you will see the price of defiance. Morrison's blood went cold. Wait. We can negotiate. Let me contact Earth. We can work this out. The Admiral's image disappeared. The first energy beam struck the northern continent. It carved a line of fire across the farmland, vaporizing everything in its path. The second beam hit the main city. The third hit the school district. Morrison screamed into his radio. Evacuate. Everyone evacuate now. But there was nowhere to go. The bombardment came from orbit. There were no shelters deep enough, no ships fast enough to escape. The Dominion, fleet fired methodically, sector by sector, grid by grid. Dr. Bennett heard the explosions. She saw the sky turn orange through the hospital windows. Parents rushed in, carrying burned children. She worked frantically, but then the building shook. The ceiling cracked. She looked up and saw fire falling from the sky. She grabbed 2 small children and pulled them under a desk. She covered them with her body. The last thing she thought about was her own children. She hoped they died quickly, without pain. Senator Green tried to send one final message to Earth. His fingers flew across the keyboard as the government building collapsed around him. He managed to hit send before the ceiling came down. Commander Brooks watched from orbit as her worst fears came true. She had been right. The Dominion had planned this all along. She recorded everything, every ship position, every weapon signature, every second of the massacre. If she survived, this evidence would matter. Morrison's defense station was hit last. He had watched helplessly for 4 hours as the planet burned. He had listened to the screams on the radio until the screams stopped. He had seen the cities turn to ash. Now the Dominion turned their weapons on him. The station exploded. Morrison died still trying to send a warning to Earth. The bombardment lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. When it ended, Eden Prime was a blackened ball of rock and ash. The oceans boiled. The atmosphere burned. Every building was rubble. Every field was scorched earth. 15,000 people had lived there that morning. By evening, there were 0 survivors. The Dominion fleet remained in orbit for 1 more hour, scanning for any signs of life. They found none. Satisfied, the Admiral recorded a message and broadcast it to Earth on all frequencies. This is the consequence of defiance. Surrender all colonies beyond your home system. Accept vassal status under the Dominion. You have 1 Earth week to comply. If you refuse, more worlds will burn. Your children will burn. Your future will burn. Choose wisely. The fleet departed, leaving Eden Prime as a warning, a monument to what happened when lesser species refused to obey their betters. The message reached Earth 6 hours later and everything changed. The news hit Earth like a hammer blow. Every television, every computer screen, every phone showed the same images. Eden Prime before and after. Purple skies and green fields, then black ash and fire. 15,000 faces appeared on memorial walls. Men, women, children. Entire families erased in 4 hours. Senator Paul Green had managed to send his final message. It arrived with footage from Morrison Station. The world watched the bombardment. They watched defense ships try to fight back and die in seconds. They watched the Dominion fleet methodically destroy every trace of human civilization on that world. Cities erupted in protests. Millions filled the streets carrying pictures of the dead. They shouted for justice, for revenge, for action. The United Nations building was surrounded by crowds demanding war. Inside the UN chamber, Senator Green's empty chair sat draped in black cloth. The Secretary General addressed the assembly with tears in his eyes. He spoke of peace, of diplomacy, of finding a way forward without more bloodshed. He asked for calm and patience. The crowd outside screamed for blood. But in a secure bunker 300 meters below the UN building, a very different conversation was taking place. 6 people sat around a table made of steel. No cameras recorded this meeting. No notes would be taken. This room did not officially exist. Admiral Frank Carson stood at the head of the table. He was 70 years old, with gray hair and scars on his hands from his years serving in the defense forces. He had fought in the border wars 40 years ago, when humanity first encountered hostile alien species. He had learned hard lessons back then. The Dominion thinks we will surrender, Carson said quietly. They think we are weak. They think we have no choice. Dr. Alan Pierce sat to his left. He was younger, only 50, with nervous hands that never stopped moving. He ran the most classified research program in human history, a program that officially did not exist. They don't know about Project Revenant, Pierce said. They have no idea what we have been building. Colonel Nina Ross leaned back in her chair. She commanded special operations forces that trained in secret bases on moons and asteroids. Her soldiers were ghosts, shadows, officially just regular personnel transferred to quiet posts. How long until we are ready to move? She asked. Carson pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth's official military forces. 200 ships, mostly patrol craft and light cruisers, a respectable defense force for protecting the home system, but nothing that could challenge the Dominion's thousands of warships. Then he pressed another button. The display changed. New ships appeared, hidden in asteroid fields, lurking in the dark spaces between planets, concealed in fake civilian stations. 3,000 vessels, cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and dreadnoughts, every one of them equipped with weapons that violated a dozen galactic treaties. 60 years ago, we met the Korvax, Carson said. They attacked our first colony ship without warning. Killed 8,000 people. We learned then that the galaxy was not a safe place. We learned that appearing weak was the best way to survive until we could become strong. Dr. Pierce pulled up another display, showing weapon systems that looked like nightmares made real. Quantum disruption torpedoes that could tear apart a ship's hull at the molecular level. AI-guided hunter-killer drones that could replicate themselves using enemy debris. Ships with slipspace drives that did not need the standard navigation beacons, making them invisible to enemy tracking. We have been preparing for this day, Pierce said. We knew eventually someone would push us too far. We maintained the fiction of being peaceful explorers. We signed treaties we never intended to honor. We let other species think we were naive and harmless. One of the other people at the table spoke up. General Marcus Webb commanded Earth's ground forces. The public does not know any of this exists. When we deploy these ships, there will be questions. Carson nodded. We will tell them the truth. We will tell them that when the Korvax attacked, we realized we needed insurance. We built a hidden fleet to protect humanity if diplomacy failed. We hoped we would never need it. And now we do, Colonel Ross said. Now we do, Carson agreed. Another person at the table, Intelligence Director Claire Norton, activated her own display. It showed star maps with enemy fleet positions marked in red. Commander Brooks got her scans out before she died, Norton said. We know which Dominion fleet hit Eden Prime. They are currently in the Kepler sector preparing to subjugate another species. They have 47 ships. Good, Carson said. His voice was cold now, empty of emotion. That is where we start. The last person at the table finally spoke. President Karen Mills had been elected on a platform of peace and cooperation with alien species. She had spent 3 years trying to negotiate with the Dominion. She had believed in diplomacy, in finding common ground in the fundamental goodness of intelligent beings. Eden Prime had killed that belief. What are our objectives? She asked. Carson looked her in the eye. Total victory. No negotiation, no compromise, no mercy. The Dominion declared war when they murdered our children. We will show them what that means. They outnumber us 100 to 1, Mills said. Numbers do not matter when you have better weapons and better tactics, Pierce said. The Dominion has ruled for 3,000 years by overwhelming force. They expect enemies to fight the same way. They have never faced an enemy that uses deception, guerrilla tactics, and asymmetric warfare. Ross smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. They have never fought humans before. President Mills stood up. She looked older than she had a week ago. The weight of 15,000 deaths showed in her eyes. Make them pay, she said. Make them regret every second of what they did. And make sure every species in the galaxy knows what happens when you kill our children. Carson saluted. Yes, Madam President. The meeting ended. The 6 people left the bunker separately, returning to their public lives. To the world, they were calm leaders seeking peaceful solutions. But in the hidden shipyards, orders were already being transmitted. 3,000 ships began preparing for deployment. Crews reported to vessels they had trained on in secret for years. Weapon systems came online. AI cores activated and began running combat simulations. Colonel Ross visited one of the training bases hidden on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Her soldiers gathered in the briefing room. These were men and women who had volunteered for a program they could never discuss. They had families who thought they did desk jobs on boring stations. You know what happened to Eden Prime? Ross said. The Dominion thinks that will make us surrender. They are wrong. Tomorrow we show them what happens when you make humanity angry. We show them why we survived every predator on Earth. We show them that we are the monsters they should have feared all along. The soldiers cheered. On Earth, people still mourned. They held vigils and cried for the dead. They demanded their leaders do something, anything, to make the pain stop. Soon they would get their wish. The Dominion had 1 week to enjoy their victory. They should have used it to run. The Dominion Task Force sat in orbit above Theta 7, a small world inhabited by a species the Dominion had decided to subjugate. Admiral Krell commanded 47 warships from his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. He was pleased with himself. The Eden Prime operation had gone perfectly. The humans would surrender soon and he would be promoted. His ships moved into bombardment position. The species below had refused to submit. Now they would burn, just like the humans had. Krell never saw the attack coming. Captain Derek Price stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, a stealth carrier that official records said did not exist. His ship floated at the edge of the star system, completely invisible to Dominion sensors. Around him, 12 other human vessels waited in the dark. Price was 40 years old and had lost his brother on Eden Prime. His brother had been a farmer, growing food to feed the colony. His niece had been 7 years old. She had liked to draw pictures of flowers. Now they were ash. All ships report ready, his tactical officer said. Price nodded. He opened the ship-wide communication channel. His crew waited silently. 300 men and women who had trained for this moment. 3 days ago, the Dominion murdered 15,000 civilians, Price said. They killed our children. They thought it would break us. They were wrong. Today we show them what happens when you hurt humanity. Today we make them pay. For Eden Prime. For every human who died screaming while these monsters watched. The crew remained silent. But Price could feel their anger. It burned in their eyes, in their clenched fists, in the way they prepared their weapons. Launch drones, Price ordered. The Valkyrie opened its launch bays. Thousands of small objects floated out into space, each one barely bigger than a football. They looked harmless, like floating debris. The Dominion sensors ignored them. That was their first mistake. The hunter-killer drones activated. Their engines were nearly silent, producing no heat signature. They used advanced AI guidance systems that learned and adapted in real time. Each drone carried a quantum warhead powerful enough to crack a ship's hull. They spread out across the system like a swarm of angry wasps. Lieutenant Sam Parker sat in his fighter, waiting for the launch signal. He was 23 years old. His sister had died on Eden Prime. She had been a teacher at the elementary school. The last message he received from her was a video of her students singing a song they had learned. Those children were all dead now. Parker gripped his controls. His fighter was equipped with weapons that violated every treaty humanity had signed. He did not care. Treaties were for civilized species. The Dominion had shown they were not civilized. All fighters, you are cleared to launch, the flight controller said. Parker's fighter shot out of the carrier's bay, followed by 200 others. They accelerated toward the Dominion fleet, still invisible to enemy sensors thanks to their stealth coating. Admiral Krell was reviewing the bombardment schedule when his alarms went off. His sensor officer looked confused. Sir, I am detecting multiple small objects approaching the fleet. Asteroids? Krell asked. No, sir, they are moving under power. They are weapons of some kind, Krell frowned. The nearest human ships were weeks away. Intelligence said humans only had light patrol craft. Where were these weapons coming from? Destroy them, he ordered. The Dominion ships began firing defensive weapons, but the drones were too small, too fast, and too smart. They dodged and weaved, their AI cores predicting enemy fire patterns and adjusting their courses accordingly. The first drone reached a Dominion cruiser and attached itself to the hull near the engine section. It detonated. The quantum warhead tore a hole 3 meters wide in the ship's armor. Atmosphere vented into space, then another drone hit. And another, and another. Within 30 seconds, 5 Dominion ships were venting atmosphere. Their crews scrambled to seal breaches, but the drones kept coming. When one drone was destroyed, it released nanobots that used the debris to build 2 more drones. The Dominion fleet was fighting an enemy that multiplied when attacked. Where are these coming from? Krell screamed. His sensor officer finally detected the human ships hiding at the system's edge. Sir, stealth vessels. 13 of them. Impossible. Humans do not have stealth technology. They do now, sir. Parker's fighter squadron entered the battle. They fired quantum torpedoes at the Dominion dreadnoughts, targeting the shield generators. The torpedoes phased through the shields like they were not there and detonated inside the generator rooms. Both dreadnoughts lost shields in less than a minute. Commander Beth Lucas sat at the tactical station on the Valkyrie, watching the battle unfold. She had spent 10 years studying Dominion tactics. She knew how they thought, how they fought, what they expected from enemies. This was nothing like what they expected. Enemy fleet is attempting to retreat, she reported to Price. Seal the slipspace routes. Price ordered. Human ships activated slipspace jammers, devices that created interference in the fabric of space itself. The Dominion ships could not jump away. They were trapped. They are attempting to signal for help, Lucas said. Jam all communications. Nothing gets out of this system. The Dominion fleet was dying. Their ships exploded one by one as drones swarmed them and fighters tore through their defenses. They tried to fight back, but human ships danced around their weapons fire. The stealth coding made targeting impossible. The AI-guided drones were too unpredictable to track. Admiral Krell watched his fleet burn. This was impossible. Humans were weak, peaceful explorers. They had 200 ships, all of them outdated designs. How did they have this technology? His flagship shuddered as drones began eating through the hull. He screamed orders, but his crew was panicking. They had never faced an enemy like this. The last thing Krell saw was a human fighter firing a torpedo directly at his bridge. The warhead punched through the armor and detonated inside the command center. The destroyer of worlds exploded. 17 minutes after the battle began, it was over. All 47 Dominion ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had suffered 0 casualties. Not a single fighter lost. Not a single ship damaged. Captain Price walked to the communication station. Broadcast on all Dominion frequencies. Maximum range. The communication officer nodded. Ready, sir. Price spoke clearly and calmly. This message is for the Dominion Empire. You killed 15,000 civilians on Eden Prime. You murdered our children. You thought we would surrender. You were wrong. We are coming for you. We will hunt down every ship, every officer, every soldier who participated in the Eden Prime massacre. You wanted to see humanity kneel. Instead, you will see humanity unleashed. Count your days. They are numbered. He ended the transmission. Lieutenant Parker returned to the carrier, his fighter's weapons empty. He thought about his sister and the children she had tried to protect. He hoped she would be proud of what he had done today. The human fleet collected data on the destroyed Dominion ships, then jumped to slipspace, vanishing as quietly as they had arrived. On the planet below, the species that had been about to die watched in amazement as their executioners burned. They did not know who had saved them. They sent thanks to the empty space where the human ships had been. News of the battle reached Dominion space 6 hours later. The message spread across their empire like wildfire. A task force of 47 ships, including 2 dreadnoughts, destroyed in 17 minutes by a force that appeared from nowhere. The weak, peaceful humans had teeth, and they were very, very angry. The Dominion Council met in emergency session on their capital world. 12 species sat around the massive table, representatives of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had crushed hundreds of rebellions. They had destroyed countless worlds. They had never lost, until now. Grand Admiral Zekthor stood before the council, his 4 arms crossed in anger. He was the supreme military commander, a veteran of 200 battles. He had never been defeated. The humans must be destroyed, he said, completely, utterly. We will make an example of them that will echo for 1,000 years. The council agreed. They had built their empire on fear. If the humans could defy them and survive, others would follow. The empire would crumble. Take the Grand Fleet, the council leader said. Destroy Earth, leave nothing alive. Not a single human must survive. Zekthor saluted and left to prepare the largest military operation in Dominion history. On Earth, Admiral Carson watched the enemy fleet assemble. Intelligence Director Norton's spy networks tracked every ship movement. The Dominion was gathering 800 warships, including 12 dreadnoughts and the flagship Eternal Dominance. They are bringing everything, Norton said. Carson nodded. Good. Let them come. Colonel Rick Stone commanded the ground forces stationed throughout Earth's solar system. His soldiers were hidden on asteroids that had been hollowed out and converted into mobile weapons platforms. From the outside, they looked like normal space rocks. Inside, they contained railguns, missile batteries, and enough supplies to fight for months. The enemy fleet will arrive in 2 days, Carson told Stone. Your people need to be ready. We have been ready for 40 years, Stone replied. Captain Amy Walsh commanded the submarine division. The name was a joke from old Earth history, when submarines hid underwater to attack surface ships. Walsh's submarines hid in debris fields and asteroid belts, invisible to sensors until they struck. She had 60 ships under her command, each one designed for stealth and surprise attacks. Her crews were volunteers who had trained in secret for years. They were ghosts in space. Earth's defenses were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The moon had been converted into a massive fortress, its surface covered with hidden railgun batteries. The asteroid belt contained hundreds of weaponized rocks. Automated defense platforms floated throughout the system, appearing as harmless satellites until activated. But the real secret was the AI system. Dr. Pierce had created an artificial intelligence that controlled all defensive systems, coordinating them in real time. It could process millions of data points per second, predicting enemy movements and adjusting human tactics instantly. The Dominion was bringing brute force. Earth was bringing intelligence and deception. The Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's system 2 days later. Zekthor stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominance looking at the blue planet ahead. Such a small world to cause so much trouble. Full speed ahead, he ordered. Destroy everything. His fleet accelerated toward Earth. Sensors showed only 200 human ships in defensive positions. Exactly what intelligence had predicted. The rumors of a hidden fleet must have been exaggerated. The first asteroid exploded when the Dominion fleet reached the outer system. It was not an explosion from weapons fire. The asteroid itself detonated, releasing thousands of kinetic projectiles in all directions. 3 Dominion ships were shredded instantly. What was that? Zekthor demanded. Before his sensor officer could answer, 50 more asteroids exploded. The kinetic projectiles tore through the Dominion formation. Ships raised shields, but the projectiles were moving too fast. They punched through shields like they were paper. 20 more ships died. Return fire, Zekthor screamed. The fleet began shooting at asteroids, but they could not tell which ones were weapons and which ones were just rocks. They destroyed hundreds of harmless asteroids while the weaponized ones stayed hidden. Colonel Stone watched from inside one of the armed asteroids. His railguns charged and fired, sending projectiles at near light speed into enemy ships. Then his asteroid's engines activated, moving it to a new position before the enemy could target it. All units, fire and move, Stone ordered. Keep them guessing. The Dominion fleet pushed deeper into the system. They lost ships every minute, but they had numbers. They would overwhelm the defenses through sheer mass. Then Captain Walsh's submarines struck. They emerged from debris fields, fired their torpedoes, and vanished before the enemy could respond. The torpedoes were equipped with AI guidance systems that tracked heat signatures and predicted evasion patterns. They never missed. 30 Dominion ships exploded in the first submarine attack. The fleet tried to hunt the submarines, but they were ghosts. By the time sensors detected them, they were gone. The battle raged for 6 days. The Dominion pushed forward, losing ships constantly but never stopping. They fought like they always had, with overwhelming force and determination. But Earth's defenses were designed by people who studied history. People who knew how small forces defeated large armies. People who understood that intelligence beat strength every time. The AI system learned from every exchange. It predicted enemy movements with increasing accuracy. It coordinated attacks from multiple directions simultaneously. It exploited every weakness in Dominion tactics. On the 4th day, the moon revealed its weapons. Massive railguns emerged from hidden bunkers and began firing. The shells were the size of houses, traveling at incredible speeds. When they hit, Dominion dreadnoughts cracked open like eggs. 2 dreadnoughts died in the first volley. 3 more died in the second. Zekthor realized he was losing. Impossible. The Dominion had 800 ships. The humans should have been crushed by now. All ships focus fire on Earth itself, he ordered. If we cannot win, we will make them pay. The fleet changed course, heading directly for the blue planet. But they had to get through the inner defensive ring first. That was where Earth's hidden fleet waited. 3,000 ships decloaked simultaneously, surrounding the Dominion fleet. They had been there all along, invisible, waiting for this moment. Fire, Admiral Carson ordered. The human fleet opened up with everything. Quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, kinetic weapons, and experimental energy beams that could cut through a dreadnought's armor like butter. The Dominion fleet was caught in a kill box. Enemies on all sides, no room to maneuver, nowhere to run. They fought desperately, but human ships danced around their weapons fire while the AI system coordinated devastating combined attacks. On the 6th day, Colonel Nina Ross led a boarding party onto the Eternal Dominance. Her Special Forces soldiers wore advanced combat armor and carried weapons designed to fight inside spaceships. They teleported directly onto the enemy flagship using experimental transportation technology. The Dominion crew never stood a chance. Ross's soldiers moved through the ship like shadows, neutralizing resistance with brutal efficiency. They reached the bridge in 20 minutes. Zekthor stood alone, his forearms holding weapons. Ross walked toward him calmly. "Surrender," she said. "Never. The Dominion does not surrender. Then die." Ross's soldiers stunned him with neural disruptors. They did not kill him. He would face trial for Eden Prime. The battle ended when the Eternal Dominance broadcast a surrender signal. The remaining Dominion ships, leaderless and broken, stopped fighting. Of 800 ships, only 93 survived. The rest were destroyed or disabled. Earth had lost 120 ships and 15,000 personnel. Every name would be remembered. Every sacrifice honored. But Earth had won. President Mills addressed the world from the UN building. Behind her, through the windows, people could see the debris from the battle burning up in the atmosphere like shooting stars. "Today we proved that Earth cannot be conquered," she said. "We paid a terrible price, but we showed the galaxy that humanity will never surrender. Never kneel. Never submit. We are going to the stars and no one will stop us." Around the world, people cheered. They had been afraid. Now they were proud. The Dominion had tried to break them. Instead, they had created something they should have feared all along. The video played on every screen in Dominion space. Grand Admiral Zekthor, the Unconquerable, stood in chains before a human tribunal. His forearms were bound, his proud posture broken. Behind him, the ruins of his flagship floated in space. President Mills spoke to the camera. "The Dominion asked for war. They murdered 15,000 civilians. They thought we would surrender. Instead, they learned what happens when you threaten humanity's children." The broadcast continued, showing footage from the Battle of Earth. Dominion ships burning. The Grand Fleet destroyed. The Empire's invincibility shattered in 6 days. Other species watched the broadcast. Species that had been conquered by the Dominion centuries ago. Species that had been forced to serve, to submit, to accept their place as vassals. They saw the humans win, and they realized something important. The Dominion could be beaten. Rebellions erupted across the Empire. The Korvax, the first species to attack humanity 60 years ago, rose up against their Dominion overlords. The Threx, a species enslaved for 500 years, seized their homeworld. The Ven refused to send tribute ships. Within 2 weeks, the Dominion faced 30 separate wars. The Empire was collapsing. The Dominion Council met an emergency session again. This time they were desperate. Their Grand Fleet was destroyed. Their admiral was captured. Their subject species were rebelling. They had no choice. They requested negotiations. Ambassador John Hayes led Earth's delegation to the neutral station where talks would take place. He was 60 years old, a career diplomat who had spent his life trying to prevent war. Eden Prime had shown him that sometimes war was necessary. The Dominion representatives sat across from him, their faces showing fear for the first time in 3,000 years. They had always been the ones making demands. Now they were begging. "What are your terms?" the lead Dominion diplomat asked. Hayes opened his folder. "First, all Dominion forces will immediately withdraw from human space. Every system we have settled is ours forever." The Dominion diplomat nodded. "Agreed." Second, every species currently under Dominion control will be given the choice of independence or continued association. You will not force anyone to serve you. That will destroy the Empire, the diplomat said. "That is not our problem," Hayes replied. "You should have thought about that before you murdered our children." The diplomat looked defeated. "Agreed." Third, full reparations for Eden Prime. You will pay to rebuild the colony and compensate the families of the dead. How much? We will determine that. You will pay it. Agreed. Fourth, all officers and soldiers who participated in the Eden Prime massacre will be turned over for trial. They will face justice under human law. The Dominion diplomat hesitated. In their culture, soldiers followed orders. They did not deserve punishment for doing their duty. But Hayes's eyes were cold. "This is not negotiable. You murdered civilians, children. That is a war crime. Those responsible will face trial." The diplomat looked at his colleagues. They nodded slowly. They had no choice. Agreed. Hayes stood up. "You have 1 month to comply with all terms. If you fail, we will resume military operations. And this time we will not stop until the Dominion ceases to exist." The talks ended. The Dominion agreed to everything. Back on Earth, the trials began. Zekthor faced charges of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The evidence was overwhelming. He was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. Dozens of other Dominion officers faced similar trials. Some were executed. Others received long prison sentences. The message was clear. Killing civilians had consequences. Captain Maya Chen stood on the bridge of Earth's newest flagship. The ship was called the Eden's Vengeance, christened by a young girl named Sophie Morrison. She was the daughter of Captain Jake Morrison, who had died trying to defend Eden Prime. Sophie was 12 years old now. She had been at school on Earth when her father and mother died. She was an orphan adopted by her aunt. She had cried every night for a month, but today she smiled as she broke the bottle against the ship's hull. "I name this ship Eden's Vengeance," she said, "so we never forget what happened, and so no one ever hurts us again." Captain Chen took command of the ship. She was 42 years old, a veteran of the Battle of Earth. She had commanded a destroyer that took down 3 Dominion cruisers. Now she commanded Earth's newest and most powerful warship. Its mission: protect the Free Worlds Alliance. The Alliance was humanity's idea. All the species that wanted freedom from the Dominion joined together. They would defend each other, trade with each other, and build a better future together. 47 species joined in the first year. More joined every month. The Dominion still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. Most of their subject species had chosen independence. Their military was a fraction of what it had been. They controlled maybe 100 worlds now, down from thousands. They were no longer the power they had been. President Mills gave her final address after serving 2 terms. She looked tired but satisfied. 60 years ago we went to the stars with hope and wonder, she said. We wanted to explore, to learn, to make friends. We were peaceful. We were naive. She paused, looking directly at the camera. Then we learned the galaxy was not a kind place. We learned that predators exist among the stars, just like they existed on Earth. We learned that peace requires strength, that diplomacy requires the ability to defend yourself. The Dominion thought our peaceful nature meant we were weak. They thought we would surrender when they killed our children. They learned the truth that our ancestors knew. Humans are peaceful until you threaten their family. Then we become the most dangerous predators in existence. We did not want this war. We tried to avoid it. But when it came, we fought with everything we had, and we won. Now we stand as guardians of the free species. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We defend the weak against the strong. We make sure what happened to Eden Prime never happens again. The galaxy knows now what we are. We are explorers and scientists and artists. We are farmers and teachers and dreamers. But when you threaten us, when you hurt our children, we become something else. We become humanity unleashed, and that is something you should fear. The speech ended. Around the galaxy, species watched and understood. Humanity had 2 faces. One was the face of peace, cooperation, and friendship. That was the face they showed to those who treated them with respect. The other face was the one the Dominion had seen. The face of absolute ruthless determination. The face of a species that would burn the galaxy to ashes before letting their children die unavenged. Captain Chen took the Eden's Vengeance on its first patrol. She visited the ruins of Eden Prime. The planet was still dead, still blackened. But human engineers were working there, building a memorial. 15,000 names were carved into black stone. Every person who died that day, every child, every parent, every farmer and teacher and doctor. At the top of the memorial were simple words: never again. Chen stood before the memorial and saluted. Her crew stood behind her, silent. We remember, Chen said quietly. We will always remember. The Eden's Vengeance departed, joining the other human ships patrolling the Free Worlds Alliance. They were not just protecting humanity anymore. They were protecting everyone who wanted to live free. In Dominion space, what remained of their empire watched nervously. They had learned their lesson. They stayed in their own territory now. They did not threaten anyone. They did not attack colonies. They remembered what happened when they made humanity angry. Other species, the ones who were considering aggression against weaker neighbors, also watched and learned. They saw what happened to the Dominion. They decided to find peaceful solutions to their problems. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still problems. But everyone now understood something important. Humanity looked peaceful. They talked about cooperation and friendship. They offered help and support to struggling species. But if you threatened them, if you hurt their children, you would see their other face, and that face was terrifying. Lieutenant Sam Parker, now promoted to captain, flew his fighter on patrol near the border. He thought about his sister sometimes, the teacher who died on Eden Prime. He kept a picture of her in his cockpit. She had believed in peace. She had taught children to be kind, to solve problems with words instead of violence. Parker believed in those things too, but he also believed in being ready for when words failed. He believed in being strong enough that enemies thought twice before attacking. He believed in showing the galaxy that humanity would defend itself. The patrol was quiet. No threats. No problems. Just empty space and distant stars. Parker smiled. This was what his sister had wanted. A galaxy where children could grow up safe, where teachers could teach without fear, where farmers could grow crops without worrying about orbital bombardment. They had paid a terrible price for it. 15,000 dead, thousands more who died in the Battle of Earth, but they had won. And now every child in the Free World's Alliance could sleep safely. That was worth the price. The Eden's Vengeance and her sister ships continued their patrol, silent guardians watching over the night. The galaxy was learning to live in peace, because everyone now knew what happened when you started a war with humanity. You lost, and you paid for it in ways you could never imagine.